18 years, 10 months, and 28 days. Melee is one of the rare esports to have a history as old as some of the newer players entering the scene. Some games have strong traditions and player bases passed down from older titles, but the people playing Melee competitively in 2001 were playing the same game as the one we're playing online in 2020. Breakthroughs in Melee's tech seem to come about once every 3 years. Semi-recently, shield dropping has taken a hold of players' practice regimens, but there was a time where out-of-shield options and wave dashing were brand new and breaking edge, and even doubted in real usage. In today's video, we'll be paying our respects to the old-school legends who came before us, and highlighting competitors who managed to leave long-lasting impressions on the characters they played and Melee as a whole. Alright, let's clarify some shit real quick. For us, old school players means that we're limiting this list to results before Genesis 1 in 2009. For that reason, we'll be leaving players like Armada and Mango off, as it wouldn't be fair to their overall influence on characters to only consider their impact by 09. Maybe players like these and some others who revolutionized mid-tiers will get their own video in the future, but for now we're talking MLG era and before in this video. And finally, we left off players like Ken, Bomb Soldier, PC Chris, and other legends from the documentary because we wanted to avoid regurgitating and recreating the same videos that were already done flawlessly by Samox. These players for sure had extreme impacts on characters' playstyles, but we felt that there's not much more that we personally can really add to the equation. If you're curious why a big name old school player was left off, there's a good chance it's because of the 9-part Smash documentary. PBR Boston, hit us up and let's talk over a cold one, and here's Allston Melee's 10 old school players who influence characters' playstyles. Thanks to these people for the video suggestion, subscribe for weekly Melee top 10s, and number 10, Dreffen. Dreffen Chic is like the 2003 Toyota Camry of Melee because goddamn that shit can still get you to your destination. Spamming down smash and grab kill options, it hasn't changed much except a bit of wisdom and more disconnect from the generations who have entered after, but Dreffen is a stable pillar in Melee's competitive life, unwilling to move or be washed away. He's been a top player since 2006, grabbing and down smashing the best players in the world then, and he's a top player now, still grabbing and down smashing as the best player in Ohio and top 50 frontrunner. We here at Allston Melee have created a way that perfectly illustrates Dreffen's consistent playstyle in a game called Is This Set of Dreffen Chic from before 2009 or after 2016? Okay, you ready? And go. Okay, stop. Got your answer? This set was from before 2009. Okay, run it back. Best of 3. Stop. What do you think? What's your guess? Are you a 2-0 or an 0-2 or maybe a tie ball game type of person? This set was from before 2009. Okay, one more for the tiebreakers out there. Stop. This set was from after 2016. Thanks for playing Is This Set of Dreffen Chic from before 2009 or after 2016. Post our set count in the comments, and if we won, you're legally obliged to subscribe. Number 9, Captoir. Piggybacking off the few points we made with Dreffen, Captoir has been relevant in Melee's history in multiple points in the last decade and a half, and his characters and thought process were a building point for multiple top 10 players. In an era where counterpicking was completely all over the place, with top players' game 2s featuring anything from Dr. Mario to Donkey Kong, Cactus's Marth and Fox would give a true top tier and dual main feel that was focused on the steps to improving. While most were still going off of game feel and rough understandings of percents and knockback, Captoir was responsible for normalizing a lot of the things we call bread and butter with a few characters. Things like comboing into Marth's tipper F smash or knowing when certain throws can lead to a kill option with Fox led Captoir to being a top player as early as his 4th place finish at EVO East 2007. One of Captoir's big influences to the Melee scene that is still relevant now is his help in training a certain tri-state gamer who is destined to overtake the world. In 2006, Mewtwo King, on the road to overcoming the top 5, would be struggling to compete against players like Chudat and Ken. Still a Fox main, M2K would seek help in Captoir to train and practice in the Marth matchup, as well as the Marth Ditto constantly, with the goal of overtaking Ken with his own character. M2K, with the help of Captoir, would eventually make his dreams come true and be the #1 player in the world for a short period and help birth a new era of Melee that came shortly after. But the helpful tips and training regimens passed down from Captoir are still found in Marth and Fox players to this day, whether they realize it or not. Number 8, Captain Jack. Tournament Go 6 was an extremely important tournament for a laundry list of reasons, but for the sake of speed and for our future videos, we'll focus on what's needed here. This was Captain Jack's first tournament in the US, creating a crashing of worlds with both MDVA and California being present. Captain Jack, still thought of the #2 player in Japan, was making waves before the bracket even started, demonstrating how Japan measured up to the US and everyone around that fateful CRT. In friendlies before the event, Captain Jack would body Ken like no one had ever bodied Ken before, while showing just how deep his roster goes. Destroying Ken with fucking Bowser and other low tiers, the king of games and untouchable deity might have been a little in his feelings. After getting smacked around in friendlies by Captain Jack, Ken would get a rare 9th place at the event. On Captain Jack's side of the bracket, he performed a revolutionary Sheik tech against an up-and-coming Ice Climbers player on their first notable bracket run. Captain Jack had performed a technique that is still consistently found in Sheik vs Icy sets today that has proven to work throughout multiple eras. Like every other Sheik player at your nearby local, Captain Jack said fuck this matchup and counterpicked Shootouts Ice Climbers. He'd counterpick Shootout with Ganon, which is still thought to be a good counterpick, and used the tools given to stuff many of Shootout's wave dash ins in attempts to approach. Captain Jack won the set 2-0 over the Ice Climbers player who had just beaten Isaiah earlier, stunting the winner's run of someone who would become a top 5 player shortly after. Getting second to Azen at the most important event to date, Captain Jack used Sheik's grabs follow-ups and needle interactions in revolutionary ways. Being a good bit separated from the game plans of the US Sheiks prior, Captain Jack was known for being an aggressive, flashy Sheik with tons of backup characters to his disposal. Captain Jack is among some of the most important Melee players ever, with his early results and clear understanding of Melee in 2002. Number 7, Reciprous. Before Ken combos, wave dashing and dash dancing, and tournaments featuring players from all over the world, there was California's Reciprous. Like we alluded to previously, Tournament Go is a pretty damn important tournament series, but even the tournament that is known for Melee's early beginnings had early beginnings of its own. At Tournament Go 1, a Sheik main would attend their first tournament at the very first opportunity anyone had. The moment many players have before their first tournament, where they think they could win because they're the best player on their block, was true for almost everyone in attendance, but Reciprous would be one of the few who could leave still confident. Getting third at his first tournament to 2 ancient spacey players, by Tournament Go 3, Reciprous had moved up in placements every tournament and was now claiming first place. Unfortunately, due to most of these tournament VODs being locked away in someone's basement, we can't give a full in-depth look to things that Reciprous did, but we can transcribe the ancient scriptures of Smashboard forums posts to try and paint this picture. Commonly claiming first place, Reciprous used L canceling, shielding, and the startings of basic out-of-shield options only a year after Melee's release, using the advanced tools not taught in the special video to rise above other players. If it wasn't for Reciprous and other players and organizers like Matt Deasy packing all the lads into a sweaty basement for the first and debatably most important times, we honestly don't know if we'd be here doing this voiceover on this Melee content right now. Reciprous and his crew taught the players bold enough to attend multiple events the basic tools their crew is using, which led to the love of Melee for many players. Reciprous absolutely deserves credit on this list for his part in Melee's competitive conception. Ken and other players after him would conquer and fight for this throne, but if it wasn't for Reciprous, there might not have been a throne to conquer. Number 6, Dark Reign. Cutting out from the past for a second, and recently in 2020, Falcon and Sheik's similarities have been brought into question on the backing of Smash Twitter kinda calling Captain Falcon a lame character. To give credit where credit is due, many a crowd has jumped out of their chair screaming about stop to knee as opposed to booing after forward tilt fair. But if you're gonna look me in the eyes and say none doesn't do cool shit to top 10 players, I'm convinced you're a psychopath, and let's just end the conversation there. We bring you out of 2005 for a quick second to make the point that we really believe players like Darkrain and Isaiah had a footprint on the Falcon players that came after them with seemingly everlasting effects. The idea that Captain Falcon has to go for these combo video combos and disrespect someone personally might just be brought down from the initial imprint players like Darkrain had and was carried by future ones like Scar and Silent Spectre. MDVA in California's early scenes have been accurately represented to death, but the Midwest's notch in the belt was sometimes just as influential in Melee's competitive launch. Tournaments like Melee FC, Show Me Your Moves, and most blew up Melee tournaments in the Midwest region and created real competition at the local level as early as 2003. Part of this wave of Midwesterners entering the scene in 2004 was Darkrain. It is true that Isaiah was the best Falcon player at the time, but he was a Falcon Sheik dual main, and very soon after starting to enter tournaments, Darkrain would become the best Falcon main in the world. Darkrain is credited with popularizing Falcon's options and combos off of a down throw tech chase. Even to this day, the idea of down throwing a spacey player and reading their tech option consistently strikes fear into the heart of any player booting up to play Melee. But the concept of reading a mistech or a continued tech away with a stop knee was a terrifying and relatively new option in 2005. Darkrain's edge guards could range from the optimal thing to do in a situation to an in-game sign of disregard for the player sitting in the other chair, and Darkrain's Falcon truly had the tools unlocked that all the other Falcon players have done to death now. Number 5, Court. Court is a goddamn legend. Connecticut may be the child who went through a rough divorce between New England and Tri-State, but when it comes to Court's peach, we're claiming that shit like the child dependent on a tax return. Videos of Court beating top players in 2007 look like top 100 players right now, and that is absolutely no diss to the Mogs and the Ryobeats of the world. Court was capable in performing techniques that were displayed and used to get Peach as good as she would later become with Armada. Court, as well as similar deep-cut Peach players such as Crazy Jones, popularized the things Peach can do with float cancel aerials. But more significantly and relevant to Court was his knowledge of Peach's grab follow-ups, edge guards, and out-of-shield options that really separated him from the rest. Court was a staple of consistency in an era where upsets and new players taking names was commonplace. In 2006, it felt like Court was always on the cusp of top 8, and in 2007, almost every single fucking top 8 had Court in it. Court's Peach in 2007 was a character that many players looked after and modeled themselves from, and Court's Marth would later in life be a main component of PPMD's Marth, according to the NC native himself. While not exactly having a household name, Court very well could have been an influence for multiple of the best players to ever touch a controller, and at the very least, he's someone they respected with undeniable results. Court still has an argument for being a part of the best Peach players ever, and he's got an even better argument for being one of the best players to ever come from our home of New England. Number 4, Forward. Number Forward. Any Falco player who has done a bit of digging on their character's origins has a strong list to pull from, but Forward's Falco has personally affected the options many Falco players go for. Forward really opened the door to show what the character could do, and especially what the character can do off of Shine. Falco legends like DA Dave and Zoo deserve never-ending credit for the tools that they gave to the character, but we give Forward's early understanding of technical options our highest spot for the character. Forward was getting top 8 at 100-person tournaments, but he wouldn't truly get the spotlight of the national scene until 06. In March of that year, Forward embarked on a journey from Arizona that would write his Falco into the wet concrete of Melee's history. Forward went on a tour of the US, staying with any smashers that had a tournament nearby and a floor to sleep on, and turned the combo videos and playstyle he was performing from deep cuts to the mainstream. Forward would get first place or right next to it at many of the tournaments he attended, beating hometown heroes or legacy superstars along the way, but more important to this list is how he did it. Forward's understanding and fluidity after shining opponents created combos that do not feel so dated. Forward really had a combo game in an era where combos were just starting to be formed, and countless Falcos that came after would give him props as a huge influence for not only their playstyles, but Falco in general. Number 3, Zelgatus. There is a frequent phrase that's thrown around to describe the era of Melee that came before the Genesis and the 5 gods, and that phrase is the golden age of Melee. That phrase is no more true than relating it to the playstyle from a Fox player named Zelgatus. Shine Blind, a combo video by Zelgatus, came out in 2006. The combos that you're currently seeing debuted on YouTube in 2006. The 7 minutes worth of combo videos provided by the Death by Robots crew would send panic and pandemonium throughout the airwaves of Smashboards. Zelgadis really was performing things that we would still call technical now, and this was in the same era of people just starting to figure out basic confirmed combos. Every current, past, or future Fox player looked at Zelgadis' videos as a source of inspiration. Zelgadis popularized using Shine as the option in neutral, the option when defensive, and sure as shit the option when edge guarding off stage. The things Zelgadis did while holding your attention for 7 minutes made a massive impact on not just the practicality of what Fox can do, but what a human can do in Melee. Number 2, M2K's Fox. In a time where the Melee scene was possibly the most toxic it and the world had ever been, a young kid who was really dope at video games would be bullied online by 25 to 35-year-olds living with their parents who felt the audacity to chime in on someone else. Mewtwo King was one of the first people to ever attempt to break Melee down into numbers and percents that could be optimal and continuously used. Instead of using this knowledge as a database, M2K would be mocked in the comments of his post that he worked really hard on. Instead of tucking his tail and walking away from Smashboards, M2K and his Fox would do the opposite and use the resources he created like Jimmy Neutron using his creations to get back at school bullies. The things Zelgadis did were no doubt influential for the character, but Mewtwo King was seriously one of the first players to ever successfully use those tools against the best players. M2K would casually do things like double shine or insane jab follow-ups to take sets off of players that were thought of as untouchable. Mewtwo King's Fox, having a clear love for full hopping over short hopping, was really one of the first players to make the technical abilities look like the optimal and right thing to do instead of the unnecessary swag it was being labeled as. Everything from his up throw follow-ups to his successful use of Shine as an edge guard made M2K's neutral options extremely cutting edge. M2K would end up dropping Fox for 2 other characters to reach the top, but his Fox has stayed a somewhat active member of his roster since 06. For making Fox's options look as threatening as they could be in practicality, M2K's Fox takes our second spot. And our biggest old school influence, the King. It's 2009. Mango the Jigglypuff main is in contention for being the #1 player in the world. The arguments against him come from his lack of effort and consistent sandbagging, but everyone knows something for certain. Mango's Jigglypuff is absolutely terrifying when it wants to be. It's 2017. Hungrybox the Jigglypuff main has finally claimed the title as the #1 player in the world after almost 10 years of trying. At this time, Hungrybox's Jigglypuff is not only a roadblock for many players breaking into the top 25, but a constant struggle for everyone at the tippity top of the rankings. Both of these Jigglypuff mains ranked at the top have extremely different goals, motives, and playstyles. But there is one thing that they agree on. One note is true and consistent in both of these #1 Jigglypuff players' playstyles, and that is that whether on purpose or subconsciously, both players have admitted that the King's Jigglypuff is one of the biggest influence they've ever had for Puff. Members of the Death by Robots crew had a huge influence on characters like Fox, but also on Puff because of King. In late 2006, after years of similar placements, Jigglypuff was confidently placed as the 10th best character in Melee, according to the tier list made on Smashboards. This is not at all to try and poke fun of other players, but this was Andon, a Jigglypuff and Falco player playing against Azen in Grand Finals in 2002. Playstyles and game plans similar to what you're seeing right now was what Puff was known for at the time, and there were very rare times that a Jigglypuff player would make it far enough in a tournament to be recognized. It took until 2006 for a Jigglypuff main to challenge the top of the placings, and that player would be DBR's The King. Jigglypuff players at this point had started to put together the pieces for what Puff's combo and neutral game would become, but The King was the first one to truly put the puzzle together. Constantly smashing the down B button after 2 or 3 weak hits, the combo strings and interactions that are common now were really done against top players for the first time by none other than The King. His combo video, rollout, in classic DBR fashion was an inspiration, starting point, and inception for many players seeing a character in Melee play like the way King was playing. His combos and placing throughout the MLG era would be a main reason for Jigglypuff's rise in the tier list a year later, and by the time Mango and HBox had picked up the reins, Puff would go from the 10th best character to the 3rd. Time and time again, players have brought up the mythical universe where they can teleport back to 2009 and compete against the old school legends with their current powers. It seems as if the 1 and 2 shitters who are throwing their controller after they lose to Captoir think that if they teleport back to the documentary's time period, they'd suddenly make a combo video out of PC Chris because they know what shield dropping is. Our guess is that if you actually believe this, you are either a little unaware of how f***ing good players like Dark Reign and Forward were, or you're like IBW, and yeah, you might be right. Competitive Melee tournaments have created growing communities all over the world for 18 years, and that doesn't even include the added couple from Smash's debut. Throughout the decade, legends of this game have come and went, and have metaphorically and sometimes physically passed their controllers down to the players who came after them. The characters used by the future icons of Super Smash Bros. Melee were really defined by the things people did in 2006, and the least we can do is pass around and highlight the stories and combo videos that created our scene.